Hey guys, what's up? I'm talking about audiobooks today. This year, I set out a goal to read 25 books in 2020, and I'm actually closer to 90 now, thanks to audiobooks. About 50%, over 50% of the books that I've read this year have been audiobooks, and I'm here to tell you all about it. Hey, it's editing Vanessa. First of all, I never said my name was Vanessa. Hi, my name is Vanessa. And also, don't forget to subscribe down below. Thanks. I started off actually just like binge reading, and I was only reading at night. It was during quarantine, so I was staying up till like 5 in the morning trying to finish books in one sitting. And then I got a library card. And when I got a library card, I saw that I had all of these options for audiobooks. I live in a county that's pretty big. We have 12 library branches and they all go to the same app. We use Libby, so we have thousands and thousands and thousands of choices in audiobooks. So I started looking at audiobooks, and when I first started trying to listen to them, I was having a really hard time. So I kind of went online and looked for tips, which sounds really weird that you would have to look for tips to listen to audiobooks, but it really took some getting used to. But once I did get like through that weird trying to find what worked for me phase, now I've just this is my new love. It's my new addiction. I love listening to audiobooks, and yeah, I'm here to tell you all about it. So the first tip that I have for you is to change the speed. They have different settings, so you can change how fast the narrator is talking, and this makes the biggest difference. Whenever I started, I would listen to it at 1x speed because that's what goes on there normally, and it was so hard for me to concentrate. I found myself losing focus all the time. I would have to rewind because I didn't know what was going on. I just wasn't interested. But I started by fast forwarding it just a little bit, not fast forwarding, speeding it up to the 1.25, and just that by itself helped out tremendously. I noticed that whenever I would speed it up to 1.25, I was having to pay attention more because they were speaking faster, and this held my attention more, and it made me not lose focus as much. So that's really cool. I know some of the speeds go all the way up to, on Libby they go up to 2x speed, but I think on Audible they go up to 3x speed. I don't typically listen to them on 2x speed even now after listening to them like this for 6 months. I do get to the point of 1.75 sometimes. It really depends on the narrator for me. If they're already talking kind of slow at 1x speed, sometimes I can speed it up a little bit more. It also depends on what else I'm doing while I'm listening to it. Sometimes when you speed them up, they sound like chipmunks, and I don't really like that. So it just kind of depends. But that's definitely the first tip, trying to speed it up, because I feel like that helps get your attention. My second tip would be what you're doing while you listen to audiobooks. So I know a lot of people like to listen to audiobooks because you can do other things while you listen to them. But when I read a book, I'm not doing anything else. I'm just sitting down reading a book. I put time aside to do that. So I try to think of it that same way. If I'm at home and I'm listening to an audiobook, a lot of times I play games on my phone, but I'll play things that don't really take a lot of effort or like mind capacity. I also like doing like the color by numbers stuff. I just find it really relaxing. So that's helpful. I try not to scroll through social media while I listen to audiobooks because, again, it's harder to pay attention to the story if I'm like reading something while trying to listen to it. So I think it's important that you're mindful of what you're doing while you listen to audiobooks. I know some people like to clean while they listen to audiobooks. I also like to listen to them while I drive, but I think this comes from listening to podcasts. Before I was into audiobooks, I listened to a lot of true crime podcasts in the car, so it's kind of easy for me to listen to an audiobook in the car. And also I feel like I only drive to the same places, so it doesn't take a lot of effort to get there. But I have noticed that whenever I'm like in traffic or going somewhere new, I don't tend to listen to audiobooks just because I need to be more aware of my surroundings. So that's something else you can do while you listen to audiobooks. Another tips for audiobooks, and I don't know if this is specific to Libby, but on the Libby app, once you listen to an audiobook that's narrated by somebody who you like, you can actually click on that narrator and find a whole bunch of other books by that narrator. So it's a good way to see what else is out there. But yeah, so I want to move into some pros and some cons. I'm going to start with the pros because obviously I think it's a great idea to listen to audiobooks. Probably the biggest pro for me and something that I noticed throughout this year is that I am reading so much more than I have ever before, or I am listening to more stories than I have in the past. It is truly easier, more accessible to me to listen to an audiobook than to sit around and lounge and read a book. I do definitely enjoy reading books, but I think that I 1000% prefer to listen to an audiobook, especially with the capacity of speeding up an audiobook. I don't read that fast. So if I can listen to an audiobook at 1.5 times speed, that's already way faster than what I can read at. So it just gives me the option to listen to so many more titles out there. I think something that I discovered this year is that thanks to BookTube, there's so many books out there that I want to experience and that I want to read. So audiobooks just kind of give me that opportunity. Being able to read so many books in a short amount of time, I think would be the biggest pro. Another pro would be that I love listening to audiobooks that are narrated by the author. I think that whenever you listen to an audiobook that is narrated by an author, you're getting the full experience. Like they're reading it the way it was meant to be read. So I think that's really cool, especially memoirs. I never liked memoirs before. I had never picked up a memoir before, but it just feels very personal. Like you're just sitting down and talking to this person about their life. I'm currently listening to Promised Land by Barack Obama, and I love his voice so much, and it just feels like you're sitting down and like having a conversation with these people that you otherwise would never get the opportunity to. So I love books that are narrated by their authors. Another pro would be just maybe more of like a minimalist kind of thing, but I don't want to spend all this money on books. I really don't. I have enough books to fill up like a bookshelf and a half, and most of the books that I purchase, I buy them because I love them. I don't want to spend money on a book that I'm not sure I'm going to love. And also, I don't tend to reread books unless they're like all-time favorites. So getting an audiobook from the library is a lot more doable for me. I'm not spending any money and I get to enjoy these books. Some cons. The first one, a lot of people think that listening to an audiobook is not the same as reading the book, but I disagree. I don't know. How do you feel? Let me know in the comments. I don't know if that's a con, but I feel like a lot of people, if I'm like, oh, I read 90 books, they're like, oh my God, wow. And then I'm like, yeah, but like 80 of them were audiobooks. They're like, oh, you didn't really read. I don't really know if that's a con, but I think just like this perception of audiobooks is kind of like a con. The only other thing I can think of is that it's ruined me for YouTube, because before I knew that you could speed up books, I never thought to speed up YouTube videos, and now I watch everyone's video at like 2 times speed, except for like a certain few amount of people that I can watch like a 40-minute video. So maybe it's like messed up my attention span, I don't know, but I literally watch every single video at 2 times speed, and I can't help it. Sorry. Oh, also, sometimes the narrators are not that good. Like, they're really boring. And then you almost want to pick up the book instead. That's only happened to me a few times where like the narrators were a dud and even speeding them up didn't help. But that, for me, it has happened very few times. And finally, moving on to some recommendation for audiobooks. The first thing I definitely recommend is any book narrated by the author. Like I said before, I just feel like it gives you the full experience. Another thing kind of along those lines is a book that is narrated by a full cast. So sometimes we read books that are every chapter is from the perspective of a different character. There are some audiobooks that are full cast, which means that every character has their own narrator, and I feel like that does a lot for the audiobook. Some more recommendations would be audiobooks that have other elements to them. Like, I know The Night Swim by Megan Golding. I didn't actually listen to that on audio. I read it because the audiobook wait was like forever, and I had the book in my hand and I needed to read it. But my best friend listened to it while I read it along, and she said that you could actually, like, there's an actual podcast element in the audiobook. So I think that's really cool when those come in there. My favorite audiobooks this year have definitely been The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, which was narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo. In the Dream House, which was a memoir by Maria Machado. I can't remember her name. Dang it, I always forget her name. But that was a self-narrated. Literally every memoir I read was my favorite because they were narrated by the author. Another really good audiobook that I didn't expect to love as much, and I actually loved reading more than the book because I started off reading the book, but then I listened to the audio just because I wanted to see if it was going to be good, was The Hate You Give. That had a lot of like sound effects in it, and it really like added to the story. So I thought that was a really good one to read or to listen to. Please let me know down below what your favorite audiobook is, or if you have read any audiobooks with any like special elements that you think are really cool and other people need to listen to, because I am always in the mood to listen to an audiobook. But yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I don't think I ever said this, but my name is Vanessa. Sometimes I make bookish videos, sometimes I make videos about crazy stuff. I don't know. Comment, like, subscribe, and welcome to my channel.